Are you struggling with a lemon plant that grows fast, produces lush green leaves, but never flowers or fruits? You're not alone. Many growers face this frustrating problem without understanding the real reasons behind it. In today's video, we'll uncover why your lemon tree refuses to flower, explain the biological and environmental factors affecting it, and share proven techniques to trigger strong flowering and ensure healthy fruiting. By the end, you'll know exactly what steps to take to turn your leafy lemon plant into a productive, fruit-bearing tree. Excess nitrogen is the most common and most misunderstood reason why a lemon plant grows rapidly yet fails to produce flowers, because nitrogen is a primary macronutrient whose main biological function is to drive vegetative growth rather than reproduction. And to understand why flowering is suppressed, it is important to first understand what nitrogen does inside a plant and how the plant interprets its presence. Nitrogen is a key component of chlorophyll, amino acids, proteins, and enzymes, all of which are essential for leaf formation, photosynthesis, and rapid cell division. When nitrogen levels in the soil are high, the lemon plant receives a strong internal signal that resources are abundant and environmental conditions are ideal for expansion. As a result, chlorophyll production increases, causing leaves to turn unusually dark green and glossy, which many growers mistakenly interpret as a sign of health, while in reality, it indicates overstimulation of vegetative processes. At the same time, nitrogen promotes rapid cell division in shoots, but these cells remain thin-walled and poorly lignified, which is why new shoots become soft, flexible, and fast-growing rather than woody and mature. This excessive vegetative growth directly interferes with flowering, because flowering is a reproductive response that plants initiate only when growth slows and surplus energy becomes available. When nitrogen is abundant, the lemon plant continuously invests carbohydrates, sugars, and stored energy into producing new leaves and shoots instead of storing them for flower bud formation. Flower initiation requires a shift in energy allocation from growth to reproduction, but excess nitrogen prevents this shift by keeping the plant in a constant growth phase. Internally, high nitrogen levels stimulate the production and activity of growth hormones such as auxins and gibberellins, which actively suppress the biochemical pathways responsible for flower bud differentiation, meaning the genetic potential to flower exists, but the hormonal environment does not allow it to express. Another critical effect of excess nitrogen is the delay of tissue maturity. Flower buds in lemon trees form on mature, well-lit, and physiologically balanced wood, not on immature, rapidly elongating shoots. When nitrogen keeps shoots in a soft and juvenile state, the nodes remain vegetative and incapable of transitioning into reproductive buds. This is why lemon plants fed heavily with nitrogen often produce long branches with many leaves, but no flowers along those branches. Additionally, nitrogen excess reduces the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio within the plant, a key internal indicator that determines whether a plant should grow or reproduce. A low carbon-to-nitrogen ratio signals growth priority, while a higher ratio favors flowering. Reason 2. When water is always available to a lemon plant, flowering is often suppressed because the plant never experiences the mild stress required to trigger reproductive signals. Water plays a dual role in plant life. It supports growth and also acts as an environmental indicator. With continuous irrigation, the soil remains consistently moist, keeping the roots relaxed and fully functional at all times. Relaxed roots absorb nutrients efficiently, maintain high cellular activity, and support uninterrupted shoot and leaf growth. While this may seem ideal, it actually signals to the plant that environmental conditions are stable and safe, removing any biological urgency to reproduce. Lemon trees evolved to respond to short periods of water stress by shifting from vegetative growth to flowering. When water becomes slightly limited, growth slows, hormone balance changes, and the plant begins storing carbohydrates rather than using them for new leaves. This shift helps activate flower bud initiation. However, when irrigation is continuous and stress-free, this hormonal shift never happens. Growth hormones remain dominant, carbohydrate reserves are consumed by shoots, and the internal signal that triggers flowering is never activated. As a result, the lemon plant continues growing vigorously but fails to produce flowers or fruit. Reason number 4. Low light availability and a dense canopy, combined with hormonal imbalance, are closely connected reasons why lemon plants often fail to flower even when they appear healthy and vigorous. To understand this problem, it is important to first understand the role of light in plant physiology. Light is the primary energy source for photosynthesis, the process through which plants convert sunlight into carbohydrates. These carbohydrates are not only used for growth, but also are essential for flowering and fruit development. When a lemon plant develops a dense canopy due to unchecked vegetative growth, many branches remain in permanent shade. Shaded branches receive insufficient sunlight, which drastically reduces their photosynthetic capacity. As a result, these branches cannot produce or store enough energy to support flower bud formation, and without adequate energy reserves, flower buds simply fail to develop. Even if nutrients and water are sufficient, a branch growing in shade is biologically incapable of initiating flowering. A dense canopy also alters internal resource distribution within the plant. Sun-exposed leaves become the primary carbohydrate producers, while shaded inner leaves consume more energy than they generate. This imbalance causes the plant to prioritize growth on outer, light-exposed shoots, while inner branches remain weak and non-productive. Over time, this creates a structure dominated by vegetative growth with very few sites capable of flowering. Additionally, limited light reduces the differentiation of flower buds at the nodes, because light acts as a signal that tells the plant which parts are suitable for reproduction. Without this signal, those nodes remain vegetative. Hormonal imbalance further compounds this problem. Let's start. How can a lemon plant produce flowers? Remedy number 1. Reducing nitrogen while increasing potassium is one of the most effective ways to shift a lemon plant from vegetative growth into active flowering and fruiting, because this strategy directly changes the internal signals that control how the plant allocates its energy. Nitrogen, as a growth-promoting nutrient, keeps the plant focused on producing leaves and shoots, so temporarily cutting nitrogen stops the constant push for new vegetative growth and allows existing shoots to mature. When nitrogen is reduced, the plant slows leaf expansion, carbohydrate consumption decreases, and sugars begin to accumulate in the branches, which is a necessary condition for flower bud initiation. Potassium, on the other hand, plays a very different role. It does not promote leaf growth, but instead regulates enzyme activity, sugar movement, and hormone signaling related to reproduction. Increasing potassium strengthens the internal flowering signal by improving the transport of carbohydrates from leaves to buds and by activating enzymes involved in flower development. Potassium also helps balance plant hormones by reducing the dominance of growth hormones and supporting reproductive processes. Together, cutting nitrogen and boosting potassium sends a clear message to the lemon plant that growth conditions are changing and reproduction is now the priority, which strongly encourages flowering followed by successful fruit set. Controlled water stress is considered the most powerful and reliable trigger for flowering in lemon plants because it directly activates the plant's natural survival mechanisms that are responsible for reproduction. To understand why this method works so effectively, it is important to first understand how lemon trees respond to water availability in their natural environment. Lemon plants evolved in climates where periods of rainfall are followed by short dry spells. These dry periods are not severe enough to kill the plant, but they are sufficient to slow vegetative growth and signal a potential threat to long-term survival. When water becomes limited for a controlled period, the plant interprets this change as environmental stress and begins preparing to reproduce by initiating flower buds. The method of controlled water stress involves reducing or completely stopping irrigation for approximately 12 to 20 days, depending on temperature, soil type, and plant size. During this period, the soil gradually dries and water uptake by the roots decreases. As a result, cell expansion slows, shoot growth is reduced, and the dominance of growth hormones begins to decline. A visible sign that the stress level is appropriate is slight leaf drooping, which indicates reduced turgor pressure without causing permanent damage. This mild stress is crucial because it shifts the plant's internal balance away from growth and toward carbohydrate storage and hormonal restructuring, both of which are necessary for flowering. Once the plant has experienced sufficient stress, deep irrigation is applied to fully rehydrate the root zone. This sudden return of water creates a strong physiological contrast that acts as a flowering signal. The plant responds by rapidly activating dormant flower buds, leading to a strong and synchronized bloom across the canopy. This happens because stored carbohydrates and reproductive hormones are suddenly mobilized to support flower development. The result is not scattered or weak flowering, but a dense and uniform bloom across the canopy. This technique is widely used in commercial citrus production because it works with the plant's natural biology rather than against it. When applied correctly, controlled water stress does not harm the plant. Instead, it resets growth patterns and reliably converts vegetative lemon trees into heavy flowering and fruiting producers. Remedy number 3. Shoot bending is a highly effective yet often overlooked technique for inducing flowering in lemon plants because it directly alters the internal hormonal balance that controls whether a branch produces leaves or flowers. To understand why shoot bending works, it is essential to first understand the role of auxin, which is a primary plant hormone responsible for shoot growth and apical dominance. Auxin is produced in the growing tips of shoots and naturally flows downward through the stem. In straight, vertical shoots, auxin movement is strong and continuous, which keeps the shoot in an active growth state and suppresses the development of lateral and reproductive buds. This is why upright shoots, especially fast-growing water shoots, rarely produce flowers and instead continue extending upward with leaves only. When a straight vertical shoot is bent to an angle of approximately 45 to 60 degrees and fixed in position using a rope or clip, the natural downward flow of auxin is disrupted. Gravity and altered orientation reduce auxin concentration at the shoot tip, weakening apical dominance. As auxin dominance decreases, suppressed buds along the shoot are released from hormonal inhibition. This change allows flower buds to activate instead of remaining vegetative. Essentially, bending sends a hormonal signal to the plant that upward expansion is no longer the priority, encouraging the branch to shift toward reproductive development. Unlike heavy pruning, which can stimulate even more vegetative growth, bending gently redirects the plant's internal signals. When done correctly, this simple mechanical adjustment results in visible flower bud activation within weeks, making shoot bending a powerful hormonal reset technique for improving flowering and fruiting in lemon plants. Remedy number 4. Light pruning is an essential strategy for encouraging flowering in lemon plants because it balances vegetative growth while improving light penetration and overall canopy health without stressing the plant excessively. To understand why light pruning works, it is important to first understand the nature of vertical water shoots and their impact on flowering. Vertical water shoots are fast-growing, upright branches that consume most of the plant's energy and resources. These shoots are often dominant due to high auxin levels, which suppress flower bud development along both the shoot itself and surrounding branches. Another key factor in flower initiation is sunlight exposure. Lemon plants require sufficient light to trigger photosynthesis in leaves, which produces the carbohydrates needed for flowering. In dense canopies, inner branches often remain shaded, reducing energy production and preventing flower buds from developing. Strategic light pruning involves opening the center of the canopy and selectively removing shoots that block sunlight, allowing light to reach previously shaded branches. When sunlight penetrates more evenly throughout the canopy, flower bud differentiation is stimulated, carbohydrate distribution improves, and the plant can support reproductive growth alongside continued vegetative expansion. The advantage of light pruning over heavy pruning is that it does not shock the plant or stimulate excessive vegetative regrowth. Heavy pruning often triggers a surge in growth hormones like auxin and gibberellin, resulting in more leafy shoots instead of flowers. Light pruning, however, works by subtly adjusting the plant's internal balance, reducing competition for nutrients among shoots and improving the microclimate within the canopy. By selectively removing only vertical water shoots and opening the center, growers create ideal conditions for flowering while maintaining overall plant health. When executed properly, light pruning results in multiple benefits. Remedy number 5. Applying a foliar spray of phosphorus and boron is an effective method to enhance flowering and fruiting in lemon plants, especially when applied after a stress period, such as controlled water stress. Phosphorus is a key macronutrient that plays a critical role in energy transfer, enzyme activation, and flower bud differentiation. It helps the plant convert stored carbohydrates into reproductive growth, allowing dormant buds to develop into flowers. Boron, a micronutrient, is essential for cell wall formation, sugar transport, and pollen development. Adequate boron improves pollen viability, fertilization success, and early fruit set, ensuring that flowers not only bloom but also produce healthy fruits. In essence, foliar application of these nutrients acts as a reproductive booster that supports both flower initiation and fruit development. By understanding the key factors that prevent flowering, excess nitrogen, continuous watering, dense canopy, and hormonal imbalance, and applying the right strategies like controlled nitrogen reduction, potassium boosting, water stress, shoot bending, light pruning, and targeted phosphorus and boron sprays, you can successfully trigger flowering in your lemon plant. Remember, fruiting is not just about care, it's about sending the right signals at the right time. Follow these steps carefully, and your lemon tree will reward you with abundant blossoms and healthy fruits.